for that. First, we're going to start with President Trump having his big immigration meeting at the White House. So there were two purposes for this immigration meeting. Purpose number one is to push back on the Michael Wolff fire and fury narratives. That narrative, which we talked about at length yesterday, suggests that Trump is just a crazy person. Trump is a nut job, a child in a man body, a sort of a kook who's escaped from the asylum and is now running amok through the White House, destroying everything. And so Trump wanted to hold this bipartisan meeting to show, no, I'm going to have a basically normal meeting. And we'll have a bunch of Democrats to the White House, and we'll talk, and nobody will get hit in the head with a frying pan, and it'll totally be fine. And in that, he succeeded. He was fine. When it came to policy, however, things were not quite so glowing. The president gave a bunch of mixed signals about what he would be willing to sign or what he would not be willing to sign in terms of Daca. Now, to review, if you recall, back in 2012, Barack Obama passed into law, sort of, through executive order, the executive amnesty. This was the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. It suggested that anyone between the ages of 16 and 30 at the time that he signed this into law, that those people would be able to stay if they were brought into the country as children and had been there for a certain amount of time. And that being the case, all those people would eventually be legal citizens of the United States, was sort of the unspoken promise that Obama was making. So Trump comes into office, and several months into his term, he decides that he is going to overturn Daca. But at the time, he says, Daca no longer applies, but if Congress doesn't pass some version of Daca to keep the so-called dreamers in the United States, then come March, maybe I'll just reinstate it, which is a weird statement to make because the whole reason for striking down Daca in the first place was based on constitutional grounds. He said it's unconstitutional for the President of the United States to simply say that a bunch of people are now going to get green cards to stay in the United States or papers that suggest that they can be here legally without the approval of Congress. So it'd be weird to reverse himself and then say, well, you know what, I decided the constitutional question doesn't matter. Now I want this policy back in place, and therefore it will be back in place. That would be a weird argument for Trump to make. So yesterday, Trump is at the White House, and he leads off with his actual proposal. His actual proposal is that he will sign into law an enshrinement of Daca, right, basically legalizing the presence of the so-called dreamers, maybe giving them a pathway to citizenship, maybe not, maybe allowing them to stay in the country permanently without the ability to vote, for example. It's not clear what exactly he's talking about here, but he says there won't be any staying in the country for the dreamers unless I get the funding for my border wall. Now, this is a fairly unremarkable position that Republicans have been taking. There's some hardliners like Ann Coulter who have been suggesting that under no circumstances should Trump reinstate Daca. Instead, he should just push for independent funding of the border wall. Instead, he should just push for an end to chain migration. Chain migration is the process by which you come here, you drop a baby, the baby's a citizen, and now the baby brings you in as the parent, as a citizen. Right? It's chain migration. You bring in your entire family. In fact, the last terrorist attack that occurred in New York City was by somebody who'd been brought in essentially through chain migration. It started off as a person who got in through the visa lottery. That person brought their family over through chain migration. Trump wants to end chain migration as well. He should. Chain migration is stupid. The idea that you get to bring your entire family over just because you're here. How about we determine whether you bringing your family over is good for the United States rather than just simply assuming it, especially when you're talking not about immediate family, you're talking about cousins and uncles and aunts and grandmothers and all the rest. In any case, the Ann Coulters say no Daca at all. Now, that is what I would prefer, too. I would prefer a system where we look at all of these people on a one-to-one basis. I've said this 1,000 times, where we look at these folks at a one-to-one level. We decide whether they ought to stay or whether they ought to go, and then they go in the back of the line. They can stay here while they are waiting for their actual papers, but they have to go to the back of the line because it's not fair to privilege them over people who have been waiting diligently in line for years to get their green card and get their citizenship. But President Trump thinks differently. He thinks that Daca has to stay. The reason for that is he doesn't want the ugly pictures of ICE coming in and deporting people, just ripping children out of their mother's arms and then putting them on a plane to El Salvador. Right? This is not something that Trump really wants to do. Or the opposite, getting rid of it, taking mothers and the baby was born here, so the baby is a citizen, taking the mothers and deporting the mothers and leaving the babies here. Trump doesn't want any of those pictures, so he says, we want to do Daca, we want Daca done, but we're also going to get my priorities done. So in order for Democrats to sign off on this, Democrats want what is called a clean Daca bill. Whenever they say clean, clean just means without any riders. So what they want is Daca re-enshrined without any wall funding, without any curbs on chain migration, without any curbs on the diversity visa lottery. Trump would like, if Daca is going to get done, all of the above. He wants an end to chain migration. He wants curbs on the diversity visa lottery. He wants it done away with. He wants his funding for the border wall. And that's what he said yesterday. And by the way, as I said a couple of days ago, that deal is not a bad deal, right? It's not a terrible deal, right? If he ends up basically retaining status quo with regard to the dreamers, who, by the way, were never really going to be deported, if he ends up retaining status quo but getting all of his policy priorities, that's a win for the president. He knows it, and that's why that was what his position was yesterday. Here's what he said.
Just to clarify, is there any agreement without the wall?
No, there wouldn't be.
The wall has to be there.
You need it. John, you need the wall. I mean, it's wonderful. I'd love not to build the wall, but you need the wall. And I will tell you this, the ICE officers and the Border Patrol agents, I had them just recently up. They say if you don't have the wall, you know, in certain areas, obviously, that aren't protected by nature, if you don't have the wall, you cannot have security. You just can't have it. It doesn't work.
You would not support what Senator Feinstein asked you, which would be a clean DACA bill that doesn't...
No, I think a clean DACA bill, to me, is a DACA bill where we take care of the 800,000 people. They're actually not necessarily young people. Everyone talks about young. You know, they can be 40 years old, 41 years old, but they're also 16 years old. But I think, to me, a clean bill is a bill of DACA. We take care of them, and we also take care of security. That's
okay, so
important.
The reason that he's reshifting at the end there is for a reason that I will show you in just a moment, because the fact is that President Trump doesn't know what clean bill means, and so now he's recapitulating what clean bill means. Now, clean bill is supposed to mean including security, which is not what clean bill means typically. There are a lot of mixed messages in this press conference. Now, does he look like he is in control? Yes, and that's what he wanted, right? So this gives the lie to the idea that Trump doesn't know what he's doing or that he has no capacity to function in this office. This is the problem with Democrats setting the bar so low. When you suggest that somebody legitimately does not have the IQ points to function in a given job, and then the person seems to be functional, then it is a visual rebuke to all of the lines that have been used by Democrats over the past year, a couple of years, about Trump being so crazy that he can't be allowed anywhere near the Oval Office. Here's Trump continuing, but the bigger story, I think, for conservatives is the mixed messages. So Trump, for example, dropped a full-on Jeb Bush line. He suggested that he wanted a bill of love. I remember when Jeb Bush said that trying to legalize illegal immigrants was an act of love, and he was ripped up and down for the privilege, right? One of the people ripping him was Donald Trump. How dare you say act of love? And Jeb sort of retreated into the corner. Well, Donald Trump did exactly the same thing yesterday. He talked about how he wanted a bill of love. Now we're going to have a bill of love. First of all, I don't think that we should have bills of love. I think we should have bills of good policy, just as a general rule. I'll show you what Trump said in just a second. First, I want to say thank you to our sponsors over at Indochino. So, you want to look your best, right? You have a big business meeting coming up, or you have a wedding coming up, or you have a big date coming up, and you want to look as stylish as you possibly can. Well, that's where Indochino comes in. Indochino makes you a made-to-measure suit. It fits better compared to a generic off-the-rack suit. It is made from scratch. They're the largest custom apparel company. They make suits and shirts to your exact measurements for a great fit. Here's how it works. You pick your fabric, you choose your customizations, you submit your measurements, you place your order, and you wait for it to arrive in 3 weeks or less. Or you can go into one of their headquarters in places like Los Angeles. I went into their headquarters in Beverly Hills, and it was a really fun experience. You actually got to look at all of the different modifications, and the tailor works with you to figure out exactly how you want it to look. It all looks great. My favorite suit that I own is actually a blue/gray, a light blue/gray three-piece suit with a vest. It is very stylish. It is very colorful, and it definitely draws eyeballs, not just because I'm a deeply handsome human being, but also because the suit is just great looking. You can shop online at Indochino.com or visit any of their showrooms across North America. And right now, my listeners get any premium Indochino suit for just $359 at Indochino.com when you enter Shapiro at checkout. That's $359. Indochino.com when you enter Shapiro at checkout. That's 50% off the regular price for a premium made-to-measure suit. Again, shipping is free. Indochino.com, promo code Shapiro. Any premium suit, $359 plus free shipping, so cheaper than off the rack and better than off the rack, fits better, looks better, has all the modifications you want. Feel like you're James Bond, right? You've got the actual, tailored suit to match your coolness. That's what Indochino is for. Again, it's spelled Indochino.com, Indochino.com, and use promo code Shapiro at checkout for that special deal. Okay, so Trump says that he wants a bill of love. So here's him explaining what he wants from Daca. And again, you'll see that the message is moving around a fair bit here.
We have a lot of good people in this room, a lot of people that have a great spirit for taking care of people we represent, we all represent. I feel having the Democrats in with us is absolutely vital because this should be a bipartisan bill. This should be a bill of love. Truly, it should be a bill of love, and we can do that.
Oh, the bill of love. And Jeb Bush somewhere just is crying and crying because if only he had been Donald Trump and said bill of love, everything would have been fine. But he said act of love, and Trump ripped him up and down for it. So here is where the confusion sets in. So it looks like Trump has a relatively clear position so far, right? We're going to get DACA, but we're also going to get border wall funding, and we're also going to get the end of chain migration, and we're also going to get the end of the diversity visa lottery. Again, would I prefer that he not do DACA and get all of those things? Sure. If you're going to make a trade, though, that's not a bad trade, right? That's about as good a trade as you're going to get. I was advising a couple of Republican senators last night on this, and I was saying push as hard as you can. The reason I was saying push as hard as you can is because Trump actually is not going to take a leadership role. The great lie of the last campaign is that Trump was going to take a leadership role when it came to actual policy prescriptions, such as on immigration, that he was going to be the great leader here. He is not, and he made that pretty clear yesterday. So here is Trump debating with Democrats, and you will see that Trump legitimately does not actually know what he's talking about when it comes to the terminology on DACA. He actually has to be corrected by Representative Kevin McCarthy, the House Majority Whip, on his position, because for a moment here, he actually signals support for the Democratic position that DACA should be passed without any sort of strings attached. So here's Dianne Feinstein saying something and then her being absolutely stunned when Trump agrees with her.
What about a clean DACA bill now, and with a commitment that we go into a comprehensive immigration reform procedure like we
Okay, can you pause it for 1 second? Okay, before we get to Trump's answer, what she's saying, just to clarify, is that she wants deferred action for childhood arrivals, Obama's executive amnesty made law now, and then afterward, we'll negotiate about diversity visa programs and we'll negotiate about curbing chain migration. Here's the problem. If Trump were to do that, he loses all leverage. The only leverage he has to get Democrats to vote for this thing is that they want DACA, and if they want DACA, maybe they'll give him some of the things he wants. If he gives them what they want, you think they're going to stick around for a discussion about comprehensive immigration reform? Are you kidding? Of course they're not going to. Of course they'll sink any possibility of curbing some of the more popular methods of illegal immigration. So that's what she's saying to him. She's saying, let's do what I want, and then later we'll do what you want. Right? She's doing the wimpy from the Archie comics. Now, you give me a hamburger now, and I'll give you the $5 later. That's basically what she's saying. And then she's shocked because Trump doesn't know what she's saying, and so he agrees with her. Right? That's what happens right here.
Kennedy was here.
I think that's basically what Dick is saying. We're going to come out with DACA. We're going to do DACA, and then we can start immediately on the phase 2, which would be comprehensive.
Would you be agreeable to that?
Yeah, I would like to do that. Go ahead. I think a lot of people would like to see that. But I think we have to do DACA first.
Mr. President, you need, when we talk about just DACA, we don't want to be back here 2 years later. You have to have security, as the secretary would tell you.
But I think that's what she's saying.
No, I think she's saying something different.
Okay, you can see Kevin McCarthy steps in and goes, Mr. President, no. You're totally wrong about this. So this is the problem with the idea that Trump is going to lead the way on this, because Trump legitimately doesn't know what he's talking about. And so he has to have Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy is no hawk on immigration, by the way. And Kevin McCarthy is from California. He is not an immigration hawk. And he has to step in and inform the president this is not how negotiations work. And then Trump basically starts giving away the store. So this is the problem with the meeting. You know, Mr. President, just please pipe down, let Congress do its work, sign what comes across your desk. You can hear when Trump starts to negotiate, his opening negotiation position for a guy who's supposed to be this master negotiator, his opening negotiation position is, let me give you everything you want. That was also his opening negotiation position, if you recall, on the budget, where he told the Democrats, here, have everything you want. And he stunned Paul Ryan and he stunned Mitch McConnell, and both of them walked out of Trump's office going, what the hell just happened? That's what happened yesterday, too, on immigration, briefly. Now, Trump, I think, is going to back down now and let Congress do its work, but you can see why Republicans are a little bit discomfited with the idea that Captain Immigration Hawk over here is giving away the entire store, right? Halfway through this meeting, Trump actually says we don't need a wall. That's what he campaigned on, guys, right? Build the wall, build the wall. And then he says at the White House, build the fence in parts of the border that aren't covered by water or mountains, which doesn't have quite the same ring to it. Here's the president.
I had the big meeting with ICE last week. I had a big meeting with the Border Patrol agents last week. Nobody knows it better than them. As an example on the wall, they say, sir, we desperately need the wall. And we don't need a 2,000-mile wall. We don't need a wall where you have rivers and mountains and everything else protecting. But we do need a wall for a fairly good portion.
Okay, so this is a change from what he said during the campaign, because people were saying to him exactly this, and he was saying, no. It's because you're a wimp. It's because you're a wimp that you don't want to build a wall along the entirety of the border. And now he's saying what everybody else was saying, which is you can have a wall in places. You don't have to have a wall in places. And then it gets worse. Then he says, listen, you guys, let's be real about this. I'll sign anything. I mean, he really says this. He said, this came out of his mouth. So as I say, the meeting was good for him on an image level, because it made him look as though he actually wants to deal, and he can speak full sentences, and he's capable of carrying on a conversation, and he's capable of listening to McCarthy when McCarthy says, Mr. President, whoa there, hold your horses. But watch Trump say, listen, You send me something, not going to veto it. Comes across my desk, I'll sign it. This is an astonishing negotiation position.
When this group comes back, hopefully with an agreement, this group and others from the Senate, from the House, comes back with an agreement, I'm signing it. I mean, I will be signing it. I'm not going to say, oh, gee, I want this or I want that. I'll be signing it because I have a lot of confidence in the people in this room that you're going to come out with something really good.
Oh, gee, I'm not going to sign this or I'm not going to sign that. It's called the veto power. Right? If you're not threatening to use the veto pen, what in the world are you doing in this office? Like, at a certain point, you are going to have to threaten to use the veto pen. Now, if all of Trump's most ardent supporters, the people who are the in Trump we trust Ann Coulter types, are looking at this, they're going crazy. And Ann Coulter was, to her credit, going insane yesterday, right? Ann Coulter was losing her mind over this press conference.